So welcome to tonight's conversation, Community in the Making. Sorry that I needed to share my screen to show you slides, and then after we get started, and then you can see the guest speakers' faces and hear their voice. Before we get started, let me first acknowledge that this event is taking place on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I also want to acknowledge that I now live and work on the traditional and unceded territories of the Syilx Okanagan people. So yeah, I'm speaking to you from Okanagan, Kelowna right now. This is where I am living and working now, and I wish you could see the beautiful mountains out from my window. Joining me today are my 5 guest speakers: Stephen Lytton, Grace Eiko Thomson, John Endo Greenaway, Ruth Howard, and Bernie Skundaal Williams. And I am the facilitator for today's conversation. My name is Jing Li. So welcome everyone. Let me first give you a brief sense of how today's conversation, this panel, will be organized. First, I will introduce the 5 guest speakers tonight, so you will know who they are. And then I will talk a little bit about my doctoral thesis research on the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival. This is actually what really brought us tonight. And after that, the panelists will respond to my questions about their experiences with fall festival events. And after that, we will have time for the audience for your questions and answers. So let me first introduce our guest speakers tonight. Our first speaker, Stephen Lytton. Stephen Lytton is a longtime Downtown Eastside resident, actor, writer, community activist, and residential school survivor. Stephen has also been honored with the Governor General's Caring Canadian Award. Stephen's involvement in the Heart of the City Festival goes way back to 2003 in the Heart of a City, the Downtown Eastside Community play. Since then, he has been actively engaging in the festival and the Downtown Eastside community. It's a pleasure that Stephen joins us today, and he will share with us his experience with the Downtown Eastside community play and with the festival. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
Our next...
Should I start, or are you going to carry on introducing everybody?
I will keep introducing the rest of the speakers. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Great to have you tonight. And Grace Eiko Thomson. Grace is a curator, historian, and a social activist. She was the founding director curator of the Japanese Canadian National Museum, now Nikkei National Museum in Burnaby, BC. Grace has been actively engaged in various community sorry, I was kind of nervous. Grace has been actively engaged in various community activities. In addition to her post-retiring career as a community activist, Grace has also been actively involved in the Heart of the City Festival. Welcome, Grace.
Hi.
Hi, Grace. Yeah, it's a little bit weird because I can only see my screen sharing and cannot really see the view of each guest speakers on the screen. But yeah, I'll move to our next speaker tonight, John Endo Greenaway. John is a graphic and web designer, writer, taiko player, and composer.
Yep.
He is self-described half a sensei, a mixed race 3rd generation Japanese Canadian with a foot in both worlds. In fact, in many worlds. He and his partner Amy are brand new first-time grandparents twice over. Congratulations, John, which pretty much supersedes all previous accomplishments. So you can tell the different style because this bio is from John. He wrote this file himself. Welcome and thank you, John.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. And Our fourth panelist today, Ruth Howard. Ruth is the founding artistic director of Jubilees Theater. With Jubilees, she has created and led a series of large-scale arts and theater projects in Toronto neighborhoods, sparked lasting offshoots, and produced 3 collaborative Canada-wide tours. One of these is Train of Thought in the year of 2015. This is the festival event we will be revisiting and talking together with Ruth tonight. Ruth has also a long history of collaborating with Vancouver Moving Theatre and the Heart of the City Festival on community-engaged creative initiatives and professional development projects. Welcome and thank you, Ruth. Our last speaker tonight is Bernie Skundaal Williams. Bernie is a Haida and Coast Salish artist. She is the only female apprentice of the late Master Carver Bill Reid and is a longtime resident of the Downtown Eastside. Bernie has been creating art for over 20 years. She creates textiles, masks, sculptures, totem poles. Bernie is the master carver on the Survivors Totem Pole project. The pole was installed at Pigeon Park in the Downtown Eastside in 2016. And Bernie will share more her experiences with this project in our conversation tonight. Welcome and thank you, Bernie. Right, so I just made this brief introduction to our guest speaker. And I know you are from, sorry, let me just stop sharing. You are from different parts of Canada, right? I think Ruth is in Toronto. And where are you, Bernie?
On my couch in beautiful Chinatown, Vancouver.
Oh, great. Yeah. And
Wow.
But my home is in Haida Gwaii.
nice. Yeah. And Stephen, Grace, John, you're in Vancouver too. And I'm speaking in Kelowna. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming together from places near and far. And I know our audiences tonight, you are from different parts of the world and joining us in different time zones. So you may wonder, after this brief introduction, you may wonder what brought us together here and why we are here for this conversation tonight. To resolve your curiosity, I will take you to my PhD thesis research on the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival. So let me just go back to my screen sharing. Oh, sorry, I need to redo that. Right, so a little bit about my PhD thesis research. I carried out my doctoral research on the Heart of the City Festival from 2014 to 2017. My research looked at how people in the Downtown Eastside engaged in various cultural practices and artistic production in the festival space for meaning making, for community building, for civic engagement, and more. Let me show you this photo. So this photo was taken on January 13th, 2020. And this was the day when I successfully defended my doctoral thesis research at Simon Fraser University, which was a major milestone in my life. And you can see in this photo, my supervisory committee, also Terry and Savannah, they were there witnessing my thesis examination. So they are in the photo as well. Yeah, so these guest speakers and the events we will be revisiting tonight are part of my thesis research. And they are also the focus of my thesis chapters. And I actually wanted to do this conversation with them a long time ago after my thesis defense, but I had to postpone it because of the COVID-19. And this year marks the 19th year of the festival. I would like to invite them to join me to revisit these important festival events. And I also hope our gathering today is an opportunity to learn from each other and from the lived wisdom through this year's Heart of the City Festival theme. The community is our mentor. Before I move on to next part, I have actually a very short video I made years ago about my thesis research. So this video will give you a brief sense of what my thesis was about. So let's just take a look at this video here. I just want to pause a little bit and check if everyone can hear and see the video I'm sharing. You can, right? Okay.
Not yet, I can't.
No,
Oh, no?
not yet.
Oh, okay. Let me just double check why you cannot.
Thank you very much. We got more great
Kimmick, can you also, or can you see?
You just wear a bunch of different gray clothes and go as
I can hear it and not see it now, I think.
Okay, let me just double check and see why is that.
Yeah, I just sent you some instructions, Jing, in your messages.
Well, that's the frustrating part about doing online presentation.
Don't worry, we don't mind waiting.
Okay,
Okay.
let me just stop sharing and reshare again and see. How about this time? Can everybody see and hear the sound and image?
Yes, I can see
There
it.
now.
Okay,
The image
great,
is there now.
great.
In Vancouver, like Vancouver itself, is located on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples. The Downtown Eastside is often described as the historic heart of the city and is one of the city's oldest neighborhoods. In the meantime, perhaps no other neighborhood has ever received as much attention from the media. The Downtown Eastside has a long history of being in the socio-economic margin. Inadequate social housing, homelessness, drug addictions, poverty. All these social struggles and issues have led to conflicts and a culture of community activism. On the other hand, as an immigrant community, the Downtown Eastside has considerable culture and ethnic diversity and thriving community arts. Here you will find a variety of cultural events and ceremonies, art projects and arts organizations. One of these community events that feature the neighborhood's cultural diversity, also my thesis focus, is the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival. This is a yearly community festival that has taken place every fall in the Downtown Eastside since 2004. At the festival, community residents and artists across social and ethnic backgrounds use various art and cultural forms to celebrate histories, cultures, and peoples of the Downtown Eastside.
Plays double-decker bus. Character, my younger sister. Physical, 4 feet 9 inches frame.
In this performative space, people share with each other stories, neighborhood, artistic practice, concerns, culture, and heritage. I first visited the festival in 2013 and have been intensely drawn to the rich educational and cultural experiences the festival offered. The longer I was involved in the festival, the more I was convinced that this community event has various functions to tap into and offers rich experiences to trace. The unique event experience, various forms of literacy practices, the active engagement from neighborhood residents, and the way we learned from each other all clearly showed that people of this community have a story that needs to be told. This is a story of how arts and culture contribute to learning, meaning-making, and placemaking. My thesis focuses on these multi-layered, lived experiences around the festival, and how this ephemeral festival space engages community residents, artists, visitors, and others in experiential learning, meaning-making, and community building. In my thesis, you will be presented with a story that I experienced and remade with my fellow travelers, with whom I traveled and moved forward together along this journey of knowing and learning.
I hope you're enjoying this small video, and I hope it also gave you an initial sense of what my thesis research is about. And now I will move to the next part. Let me just give you a brief sense of those 4 important festival events we will be revisiting together with our guest speakers. I know most of our audiences today, you are familiar with the Heart of the City Festival, but we do have some audiences maybe I don't recognize. Oh, I see my friends and my PhD cohort there. So nice to see you. Yep, let me just go back to the slides, and I gathered some images to show you these 4 festival events to give you a better visual sense, so you know what they look like, because these festival events, these 4 events all took place a while ago. The first one, the very first one, in the heart of a city, the Downtown Eastside Community, was back in 2003. So this will be the first festival event we will be revisiting together tonight with Stephen Lytton. And the second one is against the current, a 2015 Heart of the City Festival event, and also a collaborative cross-cultural performance. So I will invite John and Grace to share their insights and thoughts with us. The third event, Terrain of Thought, from Ruth Howard. And Ruth is the lead. I think you are the producer, but you will introduce that and walk us through this event more in detail later. So this is the third event we will be talking about tonight. And then in 2016, the Survivors Totem Pole with Bernie Williams. All right. So can I ask our panelists to briefly, in 1 minute, to briefly tell us about your role in the event? How about we follow the chronological order from Stephen, because that was the first heart.
What specifically are you asking that we're already going to share in our presentation?
Right. So here I want to invite each panelist to briefly introduce what role you played in that specific event. So for you, that is in the heart of a city, the Downtown Eastside Community play, to let our audience know what you performed in that event. Can we start from you, Stephen?
Yes. Well, my role in the community play in the beginning was to play the elder, the storyteller, telling the story of the Downtown Eastside, in which I learned later the issues were about the missing and murdered women, drugs and alcohol, mental illness, and those stigmas attached to that time back then, and still is attributed to today. And back then it was just pills and alcohol, some drugs, but nothing major. But today, even though we have more money, and Canada is one of the richest countries in the world, seems to have gotten worse than before. So we're in the same state, and we still address the same issues as back in 2003, more so now. And when you talk about the missing and murdered women, we're still addressing that over 35 years ago. And we're still working towards a goal in that, and addressing that issue and moving forward with the stakeholders involved in this.
Right. So although that play was way back to 2003, but it's the issue you were talking about back then is still an issue that we are facing right now. Yeah. So we will
Absolutely. More so.
we will walk our audiences through this event and your involvement, your engagement in this event more in detail later. Now let's move to Grace and John, your roles in against the current.
I'm a member of the Vancouver Taiko Society, which sort of the group that represents the taiko groups in the Vancouver area. And I was one of the, along with the rest of the board, conceptualized against the current. And I ended up being the sort of de facto artistic director of the piece, one of the composers, one of the drummers, and co-writer along with Savannah Walling of the script. And we brought in our wonderful elder, Grace Eiko Thomson, who will describe her role.
Well, I was invited and was one of the speakers or storyteller. And it was an incredible, well, I don't know what shall I call it?
An experience.
Experience, okay. Yeah, no, it was incredible in the sense of the story itself about the against the current, referring to salmon, but actually lived by many of us who were treated, you know, the Japanese Canadians, and the story was told by myself and Rosemary Jorgensen, Coast Salish, and for me it was a major experience that made me realize and remember my own experience, and that it was not just Japanese Canadian, that we shared these years of terrible experiences that of racism that existed in Canada. I think I'm going all over the place. So.
That's good.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Grace and John. And Ruth, and your role in Terrain of Thought. I remember it is an interactive workshop in the Downtown Eastside, but it actually was born out of a nationwide train trip.
Yeah, it was a kind of an after event, which was very lovely, that allowed to reflect on this larger project, Train of Thought, and also to actually display and play with some of the artwork that had come out of it. So my role was, the lead artist and designer and community arts facilitator at the Carnegie Center over the course of, I think it might have been about a week. That it unfolded. And before that, I mean, Vancouver Moving Theater was the producer, but me and Savannah were kind of the conveners of it, I suppose. Yeah. Conceivers of it. And then I was there for the week full time with other artists coming in and out and other community members kind of building this exhibition, which then stayed up for maybe a few, I can't remember, maybe a month or a few more weeks or something. It remained afterwards.
Right, I remember
when I went back to Toronto, we left a trace.
Great, yeah, I remember I went to that. I think that was a weekly long event, and first was the workshop with Downtown Eastside residents, and then you had a reception night, and I was there. It was really,
that's so nice.
Impressive.
And then the exhibition stayed up for a while, which was also kind of a nice thing about it. That there's not always the opportunity for that in an interactive project, but this time there was. So it was
okay, fun. Great. Thank you, Ruth. So Bernie, your role in the Survivors Totem Pole project.
My Lord, it's first, I just want to say it's how to you, Jing Li, for inviting me, and to my Auntie Savannah and my Goggy Terry, and our other elder, Jean Swanson. I really love you guys. And Grandma Grace, love you deeply. Stephen and Ruth, simply the best. I got involved, good Lord, back in 2016. I've known of Terry and my Auntie Savannah back then, but this all came to be because of one of the elders that are sitting right there, is Elder Grace and that. So that's how we got involved with the Heart of the City. It was through my Gog, Terry, and my Auntie Savannah, and there's a whole history with that. I can share later.
Great.
But, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Bernie. Right. So thank you for the panelists to share your roles in these 4 events. And now I like to ask each of you an individual question, and the question will be more focused on that specific event and also in general your experiences engaging in the festival and in the Downtown Eastside community over the years. So sorry, I have to go back to the class, the slides, sorry, the PowerPoint slides show. So some audiences who have no prior knowledge about these events will have a better sense what they look like. So just give me a... Yeah, I'll follow the chronological order still. Moving from the very first one in 2003, Stephen Lytton, In the Heart of a City, the Downtown Eastside Community Play. And I would like to give everyone a brief background of this event. I think this is, because in my thesis chapter, I wrote about this event, and I know this event led to the launch of the Heart of the City Festival in 2004. And as you said, Stephen, you played a lead role called the Old One, a First Nation elder who knew everyone in the Downtown Eastside and resurrected your memories of the Downtown Eastside's past and present, its residents and its ghosts, its stories and its hopes. So you played this role in this event, this community play, almost 20 years ago. And you've been actively involved in the festival since. Now you've become a strong advocate voice, almost like a spokesperson in the Downtown Eastside community. Looking back on this journey, can you tell us how your involvement in the community play back in 2003 and then in the Downtown Eastside community have impacted you and have led you to where you are and who you are now, and who supported and mentored you along this journey? Okay, I'll stop sharing, and this is great. We can see each other when we are speaking. Yeah,
Can
Stephen.
everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's an honor to be involved in this initiative. Jing Li, thank you much for the invitation, and the other panelist speakers, and the stakeholders involved in this initiative going forward. How I got involved in this, looking back on my journey, it's like going back in time. Can I tell you how my involvement in the community play and the Downtown Eastside community have impacted me? It impacted me immensely because as I've learned, I thought it was just a play, but how it impacted me, I've learned as I went along, and as time went on during the play, I realized it was more than just a play. It was about the issues that we are addressing on a yearly basis, on an annual basis, throughout the duration of the time that the Heart of the City has been involved in this community. And I think as we move forward, we hope to address those issues. There was a lot taking place to plant the seed, nurture it, water it, and watch it blossom. So the community played a major role. There were so many other stakeholders involved in ensuring that this festival and this play would have create change in this community, and it certainly has done that. I would also like to thank the Japanese Hall, the Japanese community, the Asian community on where the Downtown Eastside is. We're right in the middle of both communities. They both played a major role. The Japanese Hall, for example, played a major role in the play in that they would come up with an agreement or have discussions first, come up with an agreement, and having housed the play in their house, which we've dubbed the Longhouse, the Japanese Longhouse. They've allowed us to perform the play there throughout its duration, and they've become strong advocates in the community. They are the community. They have a lot in common with us, and I'm very honored to have played a major role in being involved in that play. How the play, where I'm at today, is being more involved in community now. So the issues have changed, and you see our Indigenous people come from all walks of life throughout Turtle Island, throughout Canada, and we see them as running away. Some run away from home, run away from home to run from the issues that they're dealing with, and some are running back, and some are still finding their family. And after 40 years of being in the Downtown Eastside, I've only known 2 of my family members to reach out to the family, and it's a struggle for them to want to go back home because it's been so long, and they feel alienated, or they feel afraid or shunned in going back home or coming. Where I'm at today is I've learned that as a residential school survivor, my name I want to share with you is Stephen Lytton. That's my government name. My registered name is Stephen Lytton, and my Indigenous name is Stephen Lytton. So you can see the impact of the residential school and its history. But I know, and as I move forward in the Downtown Eastside, which has become my community, and I love so much because that's where my people are, and that's where the territorial nations have allowed us. The Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh have allowed us to eat, sleep, and work, and they've also given us the opportunity to have our people buried here, and that at one time or another needs to be acknowledged, and do us something special for that. And where I'm at today, and there's so many people involved in birthing this once again. They paved the path to make this possible. People back then never thought that this community would thrive, and because of where the play was coming from, there was a lot of nervous tension and a lot of nervous people because of where the play was coming from. The poorest, once dubbed the poorest postal code in all of Canada, who would think that a play of this magnitude would not only survive but thrive, and we're here today because of it. So, and who supported me? Community. And they continue to support me, and all those stakeholders, they made this possible. So I have 15 minutes. and they mentored my journey. So I'm going to continue on my thing here. The play was beautiful, that in that it brought people together. It succeeded in its mandate in reaching other communities. I got involved in this play to learn from the community. I want to change the fear factor of those outside this community, to change the attitude of those who discriminate against my own people, and because of where they live and economics. I am a board member of an organization, and they were in fear of coming for a conference because of their fear. They ended up coming with a lot of push. As time goes on, I think more in depth with the new perspectives. I'm always thinking why I got involved in the play. It was more than just a play. It was a community dubbed as the poorest postal code in all of Canada. The play was about the strength of the community coming together, that it was about the human factor, having people come together with no pressure to send a common message that we as a community, when the chips are down, we can come together to share the hope, commitment, and compassion. It showed more as the rehearsals continued, sharing the aspect existed from the beginning to the anticipation of the first show and to the closing show. We had to ensure that the show would succeed, even though that there was a fear factor of the unknown and the response from it. The amazing part of that were the different emotions and how it made people feel within and throughout the production. One of the main reasons I did the play was because of the events happening in the Downtown Eastside, mainly the missing and murdered women and those others who either fall through the cracks or seem to be forgotten. The very people I work with are the Indigenous people. They are mainly from the Indigenous communities throughout Canada. My motive for the play was a race issue and humanity. It's also about the sex trade. It's about speaking against the people who take advantage of the women. It's about speaking on behalf of the people who can't speak for themselves. It's about how life, it's about people dying and the forgotten people. That for me is why the play had to succeed. That's why there was so much emotion in it from everyone. That's why the audience cried. One woman who cried said it touched her heart to the very soul. It's about touching the heart of the audience. It's about reaching in and holding the very heart of the audience in the palm of your hands and having them to be a part of the play. So strong and yet so fragile. It was so bitter sweet to share their tears, their laughter, and having the trust to do that. But in our weakest point in life, we are at our strongest because we are united in one goal, one initiative, the fight for survival, and that's what matters. Without weakness, what would be the challenge? How would we find out about our own character? We must continue to make bridges despite the obstacles. It is the very heart of our community. It is our strength and soul of the Downtown Eastside. Some people see what they want to see from the outside. They don't see the inside. Life is a feast. It's a part of a journey of chance. We digest it all. Progress, that's what it's called. The hearts from the past beat until the hearts of our community beats on and on. The bottom line is that we must reach out to other communities. My favorite quote from Mary C. Crawley is, "Attitude is the paintbrush that colors your world." Through the character, heart, and courage of a community, our community, your community. I've learned that much about the strength of the human spirit and its will to survive in spite of all the challenges it encounters. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity of setting the tone. Back to you.
Thank you, Stephen. That was powerful and fascinating. Yeah, I was gonna chime in because what you said just remind me of a poem you wrote a few years ago for the Heart of the City Festival about missing women in the Downtown Eastside. I think all these years you have been a strong advocate voice for Indigenous people, for Indigenous women in Downtown Eastside. And yeah, recalling the interviews I did with you, and this is one of the reasons why I chose the In the Heart of the City, the Downtown Eastside Community play, to revisit today with you and our audience today, because I think you constantly referred back to your experience with that play, and I think it may be about reminiscing, because it was almost 20 years ago. It may be about you reminiscing the past and cherishing the memories of something that has life-changing impact on you, but it's also about your dedication all these years to bridge this connection between the Downtown Eastside and outside communities, and to let people outside the community know the beauty and the resilience and the strength of the Downtown Eastside. So thank you so much for your fascinating sharing, and we will come back in the question and answer session. Now I would like to move to Grace and John, Against the Current. So I know, can I go back to the slides again? So to the audience who may not be able to attend this phenomenal, really impressive performance. So this is an excerpt I took from the 2015 Heart of the City Festival program guide about the event description. Let me just read part of this event description. Against the Current celebrates the role of salmon in Salish and Japanese history, culture, fishing industry, and the shared experience of swimming against the current. It's just a phenomenal experience for me to attend this festival event in 2015. And John, I will move to the question first to you. You are the acting artistic director, the co-writer, and also a taiko performer in the event, in this cross-cultural performance. So you actually deeply engaged in the whole process of production. And I also know, I read the book you wrote a few years ago, and you described you were actually born and raised in the Downtown Eastside community, and you spent most of your young adulthood in the Downtown Eastside. Am I right to say that? I hope you can hear.
I was actually born in London, England. My parents were, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wrong, but you grew up, you spent some of your adulthood in the Downtown Eastside, is that right?
Yeah, when I was 10, we moved from Toronto to Vancouver, and we ended up in this little housing co-op in Strathcona. So I actually spent many of my formative years in the Downtown Eastside in Strathcona and Chinatown, Japantown. My mother was busy rediscovering her Japanese roots, Japanese Canadian roots in that area. And so that's right. I consider myself coming of age. I spent many years in the alleys and in Chinatown, and just discovering such a rich neighborhood. So it was really powerful to be a part of this performance, and sort of felt like it was coming home in some way, in some respect.
Yeah. I know you have been deeply involved in the Heart of the City Festival for more than 2 decades as a graphic designer, and you have this close collaboration with Vancouver Moving Theatre and also with the Heart of the City Festival. And Against the Current is just one of the festival events I think you are deeply engaged in. So how these collaborations, engagement with the festival and with the Downtown Eastside community have impacted and mentored you in the creation of Against the Current in specific, and in your artistic creation in general? I know you are also an artist and you are a writer as well. So can you share with us?
Sorry, what specific question do you have?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. My question is, I would like to invite you to share how your experience growing up in the Downtown Eastside, and also your close collaboration with the Heart of the City Festival and with Vancouver Moving Theatre has impacted and mentored you in the creation of Against the Current in specific, and in your artistic creation in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess personally speaking, I sort of knew my mother was Japanese Canadian when I was growing up, but we didn't grow up surrounded by community. And it wasn't until we moved to Vancouver that my mother, as I said, began to re-engage with that part of herself. And I was actually, I was invited to play guitar and sing my songs at a coffee house on Cordova Street when I was like 18 years old. And afterwards, I was approached by a group of musicians who had a band called Cocoa Rose, and they invited me to join that night. So on that night, I became part of community, and that was, on Cordova Street in the heart of what was, Japantown or Paurugai. So that, so the Downtown Eastside, Strathcona, Japantown, Paurugai have a, I consider that my spiritual home. I wasn't born there, and I don't live there anymore. So it's been, and when we started Katari Taiko, we started in Oppenheimer Park in 1979. We were the first taiko group in Canada, and we were to form right there in Oppenheimer Park on the site of the where the Asahi baseball team used to play. There's all these linkages and threads that run through that area, just like the streams that run under that area where the salmon used to run, which we refer to in Against the Current. So there's many streams, threads, currents running through the area. And for me to come back and revisit that with Against the Current and to perform it in the Japanese language school, which was the only building that was returned to the community after the dispossession of the war. Again, there's so many layers of history and power there. So yeah, it was, and then to bring in the indigenous performers, Rosemary and Russell and Zokam into it was mind-blowing, to be honest. It sort of happened organically. It wasn't really intended from the start. More and more important to share of the salmon and swing against the current. So yeah, it was pretty powerful. Keep using that word.
Yeah, it definitely was a powerful experience for us as audiences too. I remember how I was stunned when watching this performance with the other maybe 200 people together in the Japanese hall. Yeah, fascinating. So Grace, and I know you were the storyteller in Against the Current.
You're waking me up.
Yeah, I also have a question for you about your role, because I know you've been actively engaged in the Heart of the City Festival and also in the Downtown Eastside as a community activist. And I know you also participated in not just the Heart of the City Festival, but also Powell Street Festival all these years. And I remember you said that cultural and artistic events in the Downtown Eastside, such as the Heart of the City Festival and the Powell Street Festival, are crucial to the healthy development of the neighborhood. I don't remember if you still you have a memory of that, but that was something really impressed me when I did my interview with you. But my question is, can you tell us what motivated you to get involved with these community events, festival, and also other community activities at your age?
Well, at my age, actually, it began very early because I was born in that area, and I lived there until 1942. I was 8 years old when we were forced out of there, my parents, and sent to internment sites. So that was the end of my life in Vancouver, because after that I grew up in the prairies. And so in 1994, I had come back to visit a few times, but it was in 1994 that I finally moved back here. And when I moved back here, I came as a historian and a curator of the Burnaby Art Gallery. So, and proceeded to become more interested in the Japanese Canadian history and produce the Japanese Canadian National Museum. Those are all things that happened because I moved back here, and I have memories of this area that I needed to sort out for myself more than I wasn't doing it for the community so much as for myself, to find out who I was, because I had intermarried and I have two great sons, and they're all living in Winnipeg. And myself, here I am in Vancouver, finding myself. And I realized that who I am today is the result of my journey of looking for my identity. And I think that I think it was in 2012 when I heard about the play Story Weaving, that and around that time, for the first time I met Savannah and Terry, and I was so impressed by them. I went to see Story Weaving, which brought tears to my eyes, because until then, my focus was on myself, my history. And I knew about other people's history, of course, but this was the first time that I realized Canada is not the country that is written in history books. Canada has a terrible history of racism. And that was when I really started to take more interest in Downtown Eastside and what they were doing. And I felt so strongly about what Savannah and Terry were doing that I think today Downtown Eastside is not the Downtown Eastside even 20 years ago. To me, Downtown Eastside today, we recognize the incredible cultural and artistic community that it is. And it probably always has been, but it's more out in the open and we all know about it. And I think I'm going all over the place again. And I guess I'm sorry, maybe you have to pull me back to focus.
No, I think you're right to the point. And it actually triggered a lot of my memories as well, because I went back to, I'm now in Kelowna, but I went back to Vancouver this past summer, and I went to Carnegie and the Downtown Eastside, the Chinatown area, the first time after the COVID-19. I think it's been 2 years since I, last time I was in Downtown Eastside. To be honest, I couldn't hardly recognize the Chinatown. I did research back in 2014. There's a lot has changed in the neighborhood. It's more, so when you said the Downtown Eastside back 20 years ago, that was different from now, but what I'm seeing now, even now, with the gentrification and everything going on in the neighborhood, there's a lot of change there.
But I'll go back to the fact that in my history, we lived in Vancouver on Alexander Street. I can just tell you exactly, 510 Alexander Street, which was not far from the Japanese language school that I attended until I was 8 years old. As well, went to Strathcona Elementary School. But my uncles, I had two uncles who were living in Steveston as fishermen. And I remember hearing stories about them and about the fishing with Indigenous fishermen in that area. And I think that they felt more kinship with them, working with them. And they used to tell me about how they used to cook Japanese way of cooking the salmon, like called a jibu, in Japanese soy sauce kind of sauce, and salmon in it that they used to eat on the boats. And also the fact is, in those days too, I remember them wearing those very bulky sweaters that were, I don't know what they called them, but they were made by the Indigenous community. And my uncles and my dad were wearing them. And so there was a strong connection in those days with the, we called it, in the old days we said Aboriginal, but now we use Indigenous communities. And I think that we have a very strong history connection with that history. And I think that for me, it was not until I moved back to Vancouver in 1994 and you know, almost 10 years later, that I was lucky enough to meet Savannah and Terry, and to find out about the play Story Reading that I went to in 2012, and which made me have to remember my own history. And as I say too, that watching this play, I know that I was crying, but I saw so many people in the audience crying. So for me, the importance of these cultural productions, I think should not be underestimated, that we should really push for those. And I would like to see more of that. And some of the plays I've seen, I'd like to see them again. What was the name of the one that we went to? That we did across.
Oh.
You know, the whole story of us remembering my own history through these plays, and the importance of these productions, and also becoming aware of current Downtown Eastside community members who are working very hard, like, you know, for instance, looking at the Carnegie library where as a kid I used to go there to borrow books from. And today it's such an active place. All these things are, to me, so positive. And what really makes me happy, maybe because I have an artistic background, my arts background, that the Downtown Eastside is so focused on the arts, and that makes me so happy. You know, I don't know. I didn't. I'm sorry that I'm not good at telling these stories.
That was fascinating, really wonderful sharing, Grace. Thank you so much. And like you, I think I was really impressed by the cultural and artistic diversity and richness when I first went to Downtown Eastside and when I first went to the Heart of the City Festival. And I think a lot of artists like Ruth, community engaged artists like Ruth and Savannah Terry and Bernie and Stephen and all of you, what you have been doing. And I see some similarities, connections, although you pursue different artistic practices, like what we are going to talk about with Ruth in a minute.
But I want to add that for me, more recently, the Survivors Totem Pole meeting in my life for me. And I think we're going to talk about a major example of someone who is doing so much for this culture, cross-cultural things that are happening at this time to me in my life.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Grace. Now I'll move to Ruth. Yes, one slide to give our audience background. So this is the event, Touring of Thought, in the year of 2015, the Heart of the City Festival. So in 2015, Ruth and a group of community artists from across Canada embarked on a west to east coast train trip called Touring of Thought. I think it's Train of Thought, sorry. It was,
yeah, so it's actually a play on words. The trip was called Train, like the, choo-choo train. And then this event was called Terrain of Thought, but it's actually a good word play because we crossed terrain on the train, and we sometimes actually cross terrain not even on a train, on Train of Thought. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, thanks for clarification. I got confused for a moment. Right, but that was a collaborative cultural production. And they explored reconciliation and collaboration between Indigenous artists and the settler immigrant artists through participatory art making. And the Terrain of Thought was born out of that train journey. After return from the train journey, Ruth and a group of artists, including Downtown Eastside residents, built this mini landscape of a real and imagined shared terrain. And these two photos on this slide just captured part of that exhibit on the third floor. I think it's on the third floor in the Carnegie Community Center, the gallery. So yeah, and let me stop sharing and back to Ruth. So Ruth, you like the other guest speakers, you also have a long history of collaboration with Vancouver Moving Theatre and the Heart of the City Festival on community engaged creative initiatives. So can you tell us how you would look at, you understand Touring of Thought and Train of Thought, this exploratory and collaborative artistic and cultural initiative, and also your decade-long community to community relationship through the lens of mentor and mentoring, because this is our this year's theme. Yeah.
Well, I guess so. Yes, it was a long relationship that this was, and it's a relationship that actually started before the community play that Stephen was talking about, just in leading up to it, because how did I get connected with Terry and Savannah back then? But somehow we did, because I'd been involved in community plays already, a number of them, and they were getting ready to produce theirs, and, you know, looking for kind of collegial advice and sharing of experiences and so on. And so reached out to me, and I'm just thinking, wow, that was like a long time ago. There was no Zoom then. So how did we even communicate remotely? I can't even sort of imagine. Wow, how did we do that? I suppose we just sent emails and possibly had phone conversations. I don't suppose we saw each other's faces, but somehow we did communicate and start up a relationship, which I suppose was already a start of a relationship of, if you like, mentoring and mentorship, at least kind of mutual learning and sharing. Because I had knowledge about the community plays that I was sharing with them, and I was starting to get to know about their community, the Downtown Eastside, which, you know, and the work they did, which I've subsequently learned and gained much from. So then I did come out to see the community play, saw Stephen play Old One and the whole thing, and was very moved and delighted by it. And I guess met Terry and Savannah in person for the first time. And then that sparked many other visits back and forth, of different type.
Savannah just reminded me that she phoned you to ask for help on creating Period Ahead.
Okay, so it happened by phone. Yeah, they're just thinking, like, it's so, like, how did we even connect across the country in those days? But there were telephones. So there you go. We talked on the telephone, and you know, we were kindred spirits from the start, really, and we knew people in common and so on, but that's how it started. And then we formed a kind of network of artists who did community engaged arts and produced community plays across the country, which we were both part of. And out of that came many sort of professional gatherings, visiting to see each other's productions, a kind of dialogue and relationship that's, it's had landmarks, but it's also kind of ongoing, because we frequently still email each other, sometimes phone each other, you know, now sometimes Zoom, just sharing thoughts, reflections, happenings, you know, looking for sharing successes, sharing frustrations with the work, or with the funding world, or, you know, the ups and downs. So it's, yeah, I'm thinking about it now. It's kind of like an ongoing dialogue and relationship, maybe a necklace that has these sort of beads in it that are events and actually times that things happen together. And some of them are larger and some of them are smaller. And, you know, lots of sharing back and forth. And for me, a lot of, like, I've said this many times before, but I learned a lot just from going to Vancouver and seeing things that were happening there in terms of historical awareness and awareness of Indigenous history and presence, and different kinds of art making. And two examples, kind of different. One is pebble mosaics. That's not Vancouver Moving Theatre particularly, but those of you who live in Vancouver, the Downtown Eastside, know there's a lot of pebble mosaics around. And there weren't so many in Toronto. So oh man, Savannah, help me out, because this is my old brain. Name of pebble mosaic artist who came to Toronto. Lovely guy. What's his name? She'll tell me in a minute. Forgive me.
Glenn. Glenn.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Glenn, that's right. What's his last name?
Senior moment, can't remember.
Yes, okay, both of our senior moments. Glenn, forgive us for not remembering his last name. Master
Glenn Anderson.
Anderson, thank you. He both came to Toronto, but also just seeing his work and other pebble mosaic artists actually inspired me to bring it back to Toronto and kind of sparked a bit of a mini movement here. So that's one art form. The other is land acknowledgements. First time I heard people at events acknowledging whose Indigenous land they were on was in Vancouver, way in the front forerunners of that. And that prompted me to think, hey, why don't we do that in Toronto? And start asking people here, hey, they do this thing in Vancouver. How can we do it back at home? Who do we thank and acknowledge? And at first, when I started asking, because this was, you know, pre-TRC commission, pre everybody doing it, it was really hard to find someone who could answer that. And I finally did find a historian friend who told me. And in fact, here I am on the Treaty 13 land of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat and many other Indigenous people before them and others that have, walk here on this land today. I learned to say that from someone inspired by Vancouver. And then, the city caught up with us. I got to take some credit for being one of the first people to think of doing that in Toronto. Now everyone does it all the time. And for a while, all sorts of people would phone me after that, just like I phoned my friend saying, hey, Ruth, we've heard about this land acknowledgement thing. What do we say? Now nobody asks me anymore because there's other people who can answer that better than me. But, so that was a kind of a nice train of, I could say, mentorship and learning across the country that had impact. And that was pre-train of thought too, but that kind of dialogue and awareness that we don't know about this land. How do we learn? How do we support? Where do you need to go? Led to the idea, let's take a trip across the country and ask those questions together and, in relation to community engaged arts. And that led to, that happened in 2015, big project. And then terrain of thought, as opposed to train of thought, was a really nice opportunity after that had happened to reflect back on it, as I say, to bring some of the artifacts. You'll see in those pictures, there's all those little paper dolls. And we made them with people all across the country representing all the travelers, many people we met. They were a way to sort of put ourselves in the landscape by photographing them along the way. And then at the end, like hundreds of them laid out on the beach in Prince Edward Island, Abbotquate, which was our last stop. And then what do you do with all that stuff after, right? We had all that, all the notes and things. So it was really nice to be able to pack up all my artifacts in a suitcase. It was really nice. Savannah and Terry always invite me to do lovely things, I have to say. That's and that was a very nice invitation to bring all the train of thought stuff, artifacts, and put it in an installation in the vitrines at the Carnegie Center and invite back artists and community members who were part of the beginning of that journey or traveling on it, and other people who maybe didn't know about it yet to somehow also engage with it. So it also wasn't just an exhibition that you go and look at, but it was something that evolved and was alive. So that's how that happened. It was also nice that I got to be the art. I mean, I do other, I'm an artistic director. I don't always get to be the one who's doing the art, sitting in the room, full time for a week, working with people and making stuff. And on this occasion, I was the traveler. I got to be there with a team of artists and actually be making the stuff and playing with the stuff, which is kind of one of my favorite things to do.
Right. Thank you. That was beautifully explained. Right. I remember I actually went to the workshop with a group of artists who went for that train journey. And I did that. What is that? We use those brushes to paint the imaginative land with different colors. Then you put them up in the window. And
I remember you now. I remember you being there.
Yeah, and there are some photos we were together and then you were there. But yeah, that's a very interesting relationship, you and I. I didn't really get a chance to interview with you because you went back to Toronto after that. And but yeah, I followed closely on the train of thought journey and this exhibition. And all those artifacts, like what you mentioned, they are very interesting. So I took a lot of photos, and one of the photos you just saw on the slide.
Yeah, it's, the last thing I want to say, it's very gratifying that both I could do that and then that you took an interest, and then there's another life to it. It's like, that's very, very sweet and gratifying. Another interest, just putting my mind back on it, we had those vitrines. That was lovely. I love working at the Carnegie Center. I love working with people there. So it was like, really a heavenly situation. But I didn't know what I was going to do with the stuff. I didn't have an artistic vision of what was going to go. I didn't have a design in advance. And it was intentionally, let's just play and put stuff in the windows and invite people and see what happens. And so, which is, artistically, when I look at the pictures now at the things we made, and there was a third vitrine too, I think, whoa, they look really weird. That's weird. It was, and that's one of the things with community arts. There's a real unpredictability. And this was a project where I went into it embracing the unpredictability, but also knowing that what we did at the end was going to be there for people to come and look at. So you know what I mean? There's a kind of an artistic risk that, oh, what if it ends up looking horrible? It didn't end up looking horrible, but it ended up looking, well, it was unexpected. I was very happy with it. And one of the odd things though, you know, that one, it's in your picture with the sort of crumpled paper and the people sitting all over it, and it really looks like a bad map of Canada.
Exactly. Yeah, I
But it
remember
wasn't
that.
even meant to be a map of Canada. It was just meant to be an abstract landscape. And I think somehow whoever was doing it, it wasn't just me, we were sort of partly channeling the Canadian terrain landscape without meaning to. And afterwards everyone said, oh, that looks like Canada, but it's all wrong. And I say, no, it's not meant to be Canada. But when I see it now, it obviously, there was some kind of west to east. It's just kind of an odd, it wouldn't have necessarily been my artistic choice. I would have, looking back, I would have either thought, I'm going to make it look more like a map of Canada, or I'm going to make it not look like a map of Canada. But it's somehow, that's how it turned out. And then
It's
there it was.
emerging. I guess that's one part of the beauty of artistic power.
Well,
And,
it's also the oddness of kind of participatory art, right? And improvisational art that you don't really know what's going to happen, and then it surprises you, and you there it is. Maybe all art. I'd actually say all art's like that. It's just maybe more pronounced in some ways. You can never totally plan for it.
Right, definitely. I learned a lot from that exhibit, because I was first got interested in that art exhibit in the Carnegie Center, and I did some research, and I found, oh, this is a very interesting train journey where you sought a colonial, counter-colonial route to collect and share stories, and to try to seek collaboration and reconciliation between.
And it was very, I mean, what came after, it had a big impact on projects and activities that came after. But I guess as far as being mentored by community, which is your theme, that thing where you think you know what you're doing, but it doesn't really turn out like you might have imagined because you're adapting to how people add in, is how one learns from community. You know, it's a sort of, it's then you're kind of letting go of your arts practice and also holding on to it in unexpected ways. And so that was one of those cases when, oh, okay, you know, I came there and I learned, I was kind of mentored by that Carnegie community to navigate through that little Terrain of Thought project. And of course, Train of Thought was a big example of that, because we were, I think, you know, mentored by the whole country that we crossed and encountered. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you. That's fascinating. Thank you, Ruth. Now I'm going to move to our fourth festival event we will be revisiting today. Oh, sorry. Let me just do the same thing. View a background. Oh, why is that? Okay, let me try again. Survivors Totem Pole with Bernie. So here, this is an event description from the Heart of the City Festival program guide in 2016. This event description will give you an initial sense of this important, not just the festival event, but also the community event back in 2016. Right, let me just read part of this event description. In the words of pole cover Skundaal Bernie Williams, this grassroots initiative led by Sacred Circle Society honors the many people who have arrived and lived in the Downtown Eastside as survivors. Skundaal is the only female apprentice of the renowned covered bill raid. The events of the day include a procession of the survivors pole from Main Street down Hastings to Pigeon Park, followed by ceremonial pole raising, arts and craft, sales by local artists, and celebration featuring local artists from diverse cultures. So, okay, I'll stop sharing. So Bernie, as the master cover on the Survivors Totem Pole project, can you walk us through those challenges as well as support or the mentor help you received from the main circles of the Downtown Eastside community that led up to the final raising and installation of the Survivors Totem Pole in the Downtown Eastside in Pigeon Park?
Initially, the Survivors Pole was not supposed to be this, not was going to be the Survivors Pole, is going to be the Downtown Eastside Murdered Missing Women's Memorial Pole. And then, which we have a very long history of that, still ongoing. And I really appreciate what Stephen mentioned too about that. And so that's what was going to happen. So now we're going back about 2006, maybe 2005, and that the log came from my home territory in Haida and brought over in because it was transported through the waters, through the Pacific Ocean from the home, and then it was landed here with a fishing boat and had to sit for about almost close to 5 years in that because of the salt water, and that went on in that. And so I had put it into the Parks Board for the pole for the MMIWG, and it was approved, but then something shifted a bit, and I think somebody mentioned about gentrification and how this all started to happen in the community. And I met with Mark Townsend. I know there's a lot of negative thoughts about him and that, but I really appreciated the work that he, in fact, I hold my hands up to him because Mark Townsend, the former, I don't know if he was the executive director of the Portland Hotel Society. Anyways, like he met me one day and he mentioned the word, and I didn't even know what the word was. I mean, English is not my first language in that, so I'm still new at it, even though I'm 65 years old right now. But and this had to, he had mentioned what they were talking about, not them, but the Parks Board in the city, some of the big people with the money to rebuild and whatever, and that he mentioned that there was something about the old building that formerly was like the co-op radio, and they were worried about the park itself and that, and he said, we don't know what to do. He said the developers have some plans in that, and so, but he didn't know what the plans were. He only heard the rumors about it, and he says, Skundaal, we don't know what to do. And I said, okay, well, here's the deal. I was looking for a studio space, so I got a studio space through them at 33 West Cordova, which is only 5 doors down where I used to live at Laurie Krill Co-op Housing. And then I told him, we can help you. And I said, the old traditional way is that once that pole goes up, they can't do anything with the land there. Even if they tried to redevelop, it would have to go back to the people in the community. So I'd mentioned that to him, and I told him that I will speak to the hereditary chiefs of the territories, and that which I did. I spoke to Hereditary Chief Bill Williams, who's actually been with us through this journey and that. So that was a long journey. So now we're going into 2011. So we started at 9 homeless women, from very diverse backgrounds in that. They looked at this tree, which was a tree. So we had to skin it. We had to do so many things with it and to strip it right down and everything in that. And we designed it. We went through 4 different designs on it because, like I said, initially it was going to be the MMIWG women's pole and that. But I had to put that in the back burner, and I just really had to focus, so this is where is Elder Grace, Elder Rita Blind, Sid Tan, Raj, there was Margaret Mitchell, there, oh my Lord, there was Hereditary Chief Bill Williams. And so before we did anything, heck, we had a meeting. I had a meeting with Hereditary Chief Bill Williams and that, and we met with the other hereditary chiefs in the territory so that before anything happened. So we did have the protocol and the process with that. So which we didn't care about the Parks Board back then because we already knew, because it took us 5 years to fight with them just to get it to where it is today since 2016. So it was through these elders, because they were trying actually to force our hands to raise a pole up at Oppenheimer Park. And it was Elder Grace and them, Elder Grace, Eiko Thomson and them, that all those elders stood firmly and they said, no, it's going back to right to Pigeon Park. Because when I told the elders what was going to happen, it was done. The elders just said no. And because there's a lot of history there. What the development of it was going to be, there was going to be some pretty high-end, there was going to be a high-end, other than at the Pigeon restaurant that's across from it, there was going to be another high-end restaurant that was going to go in. They were going to have dining, like the chairs outside, and they were going to really spruce it up. They were going to make sure that that was going to be closed to the public and that. And I felt bad for quite a while because I wanted to do the women's pole. And because my background is my mother and my 3 sisters were murdered in the Downtown Eastside. So I got involved with the movement way back in the mid or late 80s and that. So that, and I carried a lot of guilt about that. And at the end of it, it was through those elders that I had mentioned that I'm okay now. It was just really hard to, but the struggle of what we had to go through since 2011 to 2016, and it was Hereditary Chief Bill Williams said, with or without the permission of the Parks Board, we are going to raise that pole. Because in that same time frame, Susan Point had raised one of her, entrance pole into Stanley Park, and never let the Parks Board know or anything until about an hour prior to the entrance pole going up. So I was reminded of that. So Hereditary Chief Bill Williams, he said no. But it didn't end up that way. So we ended up, at a Parks Board meeting, and they knew because many of the speakers gave a lot of evidence and support with this. And that was the biggest struggle, 5 years and I think we're going to go into the other part after, but this was through the work of Mark Townsend, that because of his, he was pretty upset about it because it's like Moccasin Telegram, it just started to circulate around that something was going to happen. And this was the only way that I knew. I had to phone home to Haida Gwaii, speak to the matriarchs over there, because this territory is my father's territory, which is Coast Salish. It is like a patrilineal. So I done what I had to do here, but also in my home, it's the matrilineal. So I had to make sure before I even moved, I had to have those conversations with the matriarchs in our house. And then through that, I met, who is now my Goggy, my uncle, and my auntie, Savannah. And Wendy Peterson played a really intricate part along with this too. And like they say, heck, the rest is history and that. But yeah, so that was the inception of it, and the struggles to do what we had to do. And we never gave notice to the police department when we moved it from where the new building is going up, right by the old Potluck Cafe, where there's a new social housing going up. We had it there, and we never gave notice. The community all came together, and yeah, I mean, even the police stopped and looked, what are you guys doing? But they didn't, ticket us or anything. They were really kind about it to just to stop the traffic so that we can move the pole into 33 West Cordova, and that's where the work was done, and that's where the work was finished and that too. I apologize if I have a head cold and I'm having a hard time hearing in my right ear here, so I keep touching my ear. So that's
Thank you so much, Bernie. I'm grateful that you shared with us this long journey behind the raising and the installation of the Survivors Totem Pole. Yeah.
And I have to mention too, I mean, when we were walking across Canada, we were called to walk for justice and that, and we walked right from Vancouver, right from 33 West Cordova to the steps of Parliament and that. And we brought the message over about the Survivors Pole too. And it was Jenny Kwan that actually, she brought it to the House of Parliament. And this was actually even before we already knew what we were gonna do. We were preparing for the worst scenario, and it was already announced in Parliament what we were doing. So, and that was Jenny Kwan who did that, and so it was a great day, yeah, for that.
Thank you.
And I want to let you know too, out of the nine women, we only have 3 left, and it's a really this work really defines exactly what Stephen, had mentioned. When you look at the last, I've been working downtown Eastside since 1986, and I moved down here in 83, and I started apprenticing with Bill Reed from 83 till 1992, and nothing has changed, really nothing. I mean, I think it was Elder Grace that brought in that the gentrification is very visible, very real. It's very impacting to how the people are treated, even from back then to now. It's really nothing has changed. It's just the money has gotten bigger. I was talking to one of the ministers. I volunteer with the National Family Survivors Circle of Canada for the MMIWG. I'm one of the persons that advisors to the Secretary to Minister Mark Miller, and I'm also an advisor to Senator Michelle Odette. I'm one of 3 women. We have mentioned all of this and how it's a survival, of the people down here, that so much money is coming through. Back over 3 years ago, it was over $450 million that was going through, and we're still struggling for those spaces. Even right down to at the Pigeon Park, it is, I think we're going to get into this after, about my feelings about what's happening right now, but the ministers know that it's a real fight for just that survival down here and that. And anyways, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, you actually, thank you, Bernie. You actually answered my other question already, and something important for us to understand the creation of the Survivors Totem Pole. But I want to leave the time for our audiences and see if they have questions I hope you're there, Savannah, Terry.
Yes, we're here, or at least I'm here, and Savannah's on a different Zoom as me.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Since just a small group of us together, it's really nice to see everyone, old and new faces.
I see Jean just came on.
I could ask a question.
Please do, Jean. Take the pressure off of me.
I'm wondering if any of the panelists have any ideas as to what would be like the best 2 or 3 things that could be done to help folks in the Downtown Eastside.
I don't know if you like my answer, Jean.
Well, I want to hear it.
I really blame, because in the last, and my Goggy Terry and them know this, and my Auntie Savannah, that they know that for over 3 years, probably going on about 4 or 5, since before we had the before the COVID hit, this harm reduction model, I'm going to say it, I'm going to say my feelings on it. We have buried over 106 of our family and friends through fentanyl. And I really believe that without the health, healing, and wellness, there's not enough programs. There's so much money coming through down here. I believe now it's over 500 million now. And I just buried my niece last week, one of the greatest advocates around. Her name is Angel Gates. This should not have happened. None of this should happen. We're just going to be burying another family member, out in Surrey this weekend, tomorrow. And I really believe that for land-based healing, holistics, giving them the options to, they should be making their own decisions, not us making it for them on what we think is better for them. I'm going to use my oldest son as a prime example. When he came out of treatment, for him to go into a second part of that, they had to put him on methadone. Why would you put anybody on methadone who's never used heroin? Now I'm struggling to keep my son alive. So that is not the way to do it. And this came from Harbor Lights to this other place over by VCC, and that I phoned Jean actually from there asking for help for another young man. And thank you, Jean, for always being there. This is not working. When we go into these safe injection sites and that, and these kids are getting younger. I'm an ex-addict. I've been clean for over 35 years, and I don't want to bury my son. I didn't want to bury my niece, but I don't see anything out there that is helping. We do the food sovereignty, program every night, 300 meals. And there's more people spreading out. The people that are in these parks now, Stanley Park especially, nobody wants to talk about the health, healing, and wellness and that. It's all geared to Suboxone, methadone, all these other places that they believe. And that's my own opinion, because I know what I've gone through, especially when we went home to Haida. We had 34 headstone movings and funerals in 2 weeks. This is our village, our villages that are being struck with, it's not working. And I really believe what the elders have been saying, this land base, we need to have something in place for them to help them heal at their mental states and that too. I mean, they want to put these people like in SRO, squalors and that, that's, you know, they're not, anyways, I can go on for days. Anyways, that's just my opinion about the health, healing, and wellness, you know, of the people. And I've asked some of the nurses, and I've even asked some of the people that work in this place, how many families have you buried? I know what we have, you know, Goggy, Clary, and Auntie Savannah know. You know, Elder Grace knows. We've been burying lots. And I have to say that this is not working. And I'm just going to keep bringing it back to land-based healing and holistics and, you know, health, healing, and wellness for all of us. That's like the basic human rights that I see. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Bernie. I'm so sorry. I saw the video that your niece, Angel, made. I think she made it the day before she died. It was so eloquent.
2 days. Yeah, she made it 2 days before we found her.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Savannah, I'll just add to what Bernie is saying. But expand. I feel that one of the things that would be really helpful would be to have in Crab Park a land-based place for healing and where ceremonies from the water can take place, and to be able to have that kind of support. And I also feel like to have a support for kind of protected place and cared for places in the downtown east side for ceremony and cultural work, and for Oppenheimer Park and for Pigeon Park and Crab Park, so that they're places that are not treated just as a kind of charity place for programs, but that they're a place for that are being cared for. The land is being cared for, the plants are being cared for, and the people are being cared for by having cultural support, and an activity for that. I feel like that would be something that would be a help, in addition to many of the other things that we so badly need, including, as Jean, as we've been reminding us, that if you don't have places to house people, provide places where they can get supports.
Yeah, we've been fighting for that healing center at Crab Park since, what, 2011, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like we need that, and that so that the you know, that, for example, that the poles, the memorials that we have, that they can be cared for and nurtured and nourished too. And so that because I think that when you have monuments left in places, but there's nothing there to care for them, then it's like they get neglected, the people get neglected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess just, you know, it's a cultural practice, the supports to help nourish the land-based places that we have and the land-based cultural practices that can take place in them, and to help support and nourish this community.
Jean Swanson, good evening. Welcome aboard. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment to the community and to the City Hall. Thank you for your representation in all you do, and all those that have your back. One of the things I have finally realized that community can no longer come up with the solutions or ideas because they're not taken seriously by those who govern us. Those are the stakeholders that need to really look at it seriously and see where we're at. We've just lost a number of people in our community just in the last few days, and that's our main priority right now. And we're mourning, we're grieving, but we don't have time for that. I think the stakeholders that were elected officials and those within government in all levels of government need to involved in themselves in these issues of homelessness, what creates it, what drugs are coming in, what drugs are going out, and who's involved. Who gets hit hard the most is communities like ours. Their vulnerability, they're vulnerable, they're lost, they're broken. How do we fix that? How do our people who are elected fix it? When are we going to get serious about the issues that we all struggle with? Today it's us, today it's them, tomorrow it's us. So we need to have government, that people that are willing to be elected, but have the backing of those elite people that do have the funds to give us a hand up in making change. We can always talk and consider our options, but unless the elite and those in power give us the opportunity to do so and take it serious, we're always going to be the same. At the end of the day, we'll end up we'll still have to pick up the pieces. So we can't make those decisions. We're only a voice, but unless government and the elite come together and help make those decisions and make the possibilities possible, we're going to be right where we are now. And so in order for our population from all walks of life get involved, and our population and our electorate take it serious and send that voice in the next election, be it the provincial elections are coming up, federal elections are coming up, it's their voice. We can't make change unless they do decide to vote. So we need also have serious, committed people on the ground to send that voice, send that message. Today it's them, today it's us, tomorrow it's them. But as long as we don't have a voice, and as long as we don't, there are no task force developed to give the community's voice to council, there's not going to be change. I don't see hope unless they're committed to address those and create those possibilities.
Stephen, I'm going to insert just for a moment. One of the things that I find that gives me a feeling of hope is when the heart of the city festival itself, when I look at so much that is being highlighted and brought forward, it reminds me of how much is being accomplished by huge numbers of dedicated people. And I'm left in often awe and inspiration by what I'm seeing and witnessing. And so I find that it's really important in the face of the different challenges to be able to honor and celebrate and acknowledge the strengths that are coming from inside the community in many different forms and many different cultural rivers and practices. And to be reminded of
with all due respect,
how much you have to do, of what can be, to be reminded of the power of the many accomplishments that are coming from people of very different ages, different circumstances that are helping to make the strength and beauty of this place that we're living in.
Yes.
Right. I just want to add up on what Savannah said. I think when I did my thesis research back in 2017, what really impressed me, for example, about the Survivors Totem Pole, it was such a powerful symbolic cultural and artistic representation that honors all groups and communities in the Downtown Eastside who have endured and survived the history of injustice, violence, and racism. And now today, with everyone sharing what's happening in the community, I see it is very sad to hear the story of loss from Bernie. And I believe the whole community is still facing challenges. And this is an ongoing journey of seeking healing and reconciliation. And I really appreciate everyone's sharing today. But I'm aware of the time. We are almost 2 hours. And I really, really appreciate this inspiring conversation we had tonight. And I also want to thank Savannah and Terry, thank the Heart of the City Festival for providing us with this opportunity to gather together and to hear each other and share thoughts, insights, and wisdom. And I also want to thank the panelists. Thank you for your sincere and powerful sharing. Thank you so much. Well, my virtual background just stopped me from doing the same, Savannah. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Jing Li?
Yes.
Jing Li, prior to your finishing and closing, I would like to thank everyone for who were involved, the stakeholders, and helped set this up. This is what we need, is discussions like this if we're going to move forward in the arts or whatever capacity we're in. One thing I'd like to add to the interview that I should clarify that when our communities in the indigenous communities come to our communities, they come ill prepared, and so they love the lights, they love the lifestyle. But if you come ill prepared and they don't have a second plan, then that's when they get lost, and that's when the wolves prey upon them, and that's where we are today. So I just wanted to clarify that in the interview, and I'd also like to state that I had a blast. I had something else to say, but I forgot what I was going to say, so I talked too much. And
I just, I'm grateful for everyone for your powerful sharing and your insights today. Thank you so much, everyone. So before we end,
Jing Li?
Yes.
Are you going to give everybody a moment of closing if they wish?
Closing. Yes, I just want to add nothing from everyone. Good. Yeah, I'm just so grateful that through the Heart of the City Festival, I've made so many good friends and also get to know all of you. And I hope we will.
Okay, if I may, though death and beauty, though death and destruction continues in our community, beauty also unfolds. So thank you, Jing Li.
On the early edition on Monday, Halloween is almost
Thank you,
here.
Terry. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Ruth, Grace, John, Bernie, and Terry, Savannah, and our audiences, Jean and Graham. And also thank you, Kimit, for technical support for us this evening. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Good night.
Thank you.